want you to know is a guarantee of performance basically says that the insurance company is telling some third party that you will do what you promised to do. That's really what it is. And the challenge is, guys and gals, you will see that there are two columns on the top of your page. And when I look at the two columns, what you're gonna see is the word insurance versus suretyship. And the reason that's important for you is because I promise you, I will never pronunciate that word again. I was very articulate in that word, but I'm in a hurry, and sometimes that word does not come out as articulate. Now, so, for the purposes of our future discussion, that column is gonna be called bonds, isn't that wonderful? That's what that column is called.
That would be me.
However, my friends, what I want you to do is to know that there are quite the differences between bonds and insurance. And the first one I want you to look at right here is it does actually tell me that it may, and in insurance, I can activate it either by an oral contract or a written contract. Not so in bonds. Guys and gals, anytime there's a bond, an insurance company wants me, the agent, to sell that guarantee, they have to give me power of attorney to have the right to activate that guarantee on their behalf. If I am the power of attorney, then everything I do has to be in writing. And therefore, it's gotta be a written contract there. Also, in insurance, yes, guys, that insurance policy may be canceled, but bonds can never be canceled. The reason bonds cannot be canceled is because they're a guarantee of performance. And what good would be the guarantee if they can get off halfway through the contract, right? Not so valid, not so valid. However, the other thing I want you to know is, in insurance, that is not recoverable, but bonds are recoverable. What does that mean to you guys? If I'm looking at recoverable, what I want you to know is, in insurance, I told you that when we pay out your $75,000 fire loss to your home, I can't come back and say, can I get my $75,000 back as your company? We eat it and walk away, but not so in bonds. In bonds, you are renting the insurance company's money. Renting means give it back after the fact. So you mess up, we're hunting you down and getting every single dime of that money back if you mess up. So it is fully recoverable under bonds. That's cool. However, one of the other big areas of differences is how many parties there are to a contract. Guys, in insurance, we already know the two named parties in a contract is the insured and the insurance company. We can see that. But in bonds, we have three parties to a contract. So for that, please sit back, watch the show as I run quickly through an oversimplified, review of how bonds actually work. And then we'll show you what's important for your exam. Let's believe we have Joe, the contractor, who wants to build a $5 million building for the city of St. Petersburg. At which time, oh yes, the city says, Joe, we know you're an upstanding kind of guy, but we need some guarantees. So tell you what you want to do, Joe. You run over to the ABC Insurance Company and you tell the ABC Insurance Company you need a guarantee of performance. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if these are the players in the bond, I will want you to know that Joe is the principal because he's the one for whom is going to do the work. City of St. Petersburg is the obligee because they're the ones for whom the work is going to be done for. However, the ABC Insurance Company is the surety, which means to you, they're the ones who guarantee the work to be done. As I have the three parties to the contract, yes, as Joe goes over and says, ABC Insurance Company, I need a $5 million bond. ABC Insurance Company says, Joe, not so fast. Just a couple of questions here, babe. Just a couple of questions, like number one. Ooh, that was a joke. Okay. All right, number one, Joe, I want to know, do you have the character to do the job? What that means to you is, Joe, what this is going to require you to do is to be at the job site 7:30 every morning, hang out through 4 o'clock for sure. You're going to be there 5-6 days a week, you know? And by the way, Joe, $5 million building, probably 3 years. Do you have the character to do that, Joe? Or do you like going out and partying and coming in at noon? Just checking it out. All right, Joe, I can see you have the character. Another question. Do you have the capability? You have the capability. I want to know, do you have any idea what you're doing, Joe? Just ask. Do you know how many pounds of nails you need? Do you know anything about plumbing? Hey, Joe, air conditioning's kind of cool, too. You know any of that stuff? Okay, Joe, I see that you know what you're doing. One last question, Joe, that's all I'm asking, do you have the capital? Got the money, Joe? All I need to do is see the money. Joe says, well, hold on, I'll be right back. Joe runs over to his CPA and says, CPA, add up everything I'm worth. I mean, take all the buildings, all the cars, take everything. And by the way, CPA, when you're adding up how much I'm worth, be creative. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, and
exaggerate.
Exactly. And let me know how much I'm worth. She tickles the ivories on the adding machine. She comes back and says, Joe, you're worth $2.5 million. He goes, whoa, $2.5 million. That's great. He runs over to ABC Insurance Company and says, look, I'm worth $2.5 million. And ABC Insurance Company said, whoa, Joe, hold on. These are big numbers, and I know my shoes are on, but we're not right on the same page here. Because, Joe, what I've just heard is you want a $5 million bond. I have the right to recover that money back. But you just told me that if I give you the bond and you mess up, I'm only going to get $2.5 million over here. Somehow the scales are not in our favor, Joe. It's just, I don't know. Joe said, well, hold on, ABC Insurance Company, I'll be right back. So Joe thinks about it and says, well, what is he going to do? At this point, guys and gals, oh yes, now he goes over to Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob is his favoriteest uncle, absolutely our favoriteest uncle. And he says, Uncle Bob, you're a fellow contractor, and I need you to be the fourth party to my bond. You know what that means. If you're going to be the fourth party to the bond, you're going to be called the indemnitor, which really means that you are kind of like a co-signer, and if I mess up, they can hunt you down for all $5 million to get back from you. But don't worry, Uncle Bob, I'm not going to mess up. Could you co-sign for me, Uncle Bob? What's Uncle Bob going to say?
You crazy?
It's his favoriteest uncle. It's his favoriteest uncle. I'm sure he's going to say, absolutely, Joe. And now Uncle Bob goes to his CPA and says, hey, take one of my buildings, put it up as collateral for Joe's bond. Uncle Bob's CPA says, Uncle Bob, you can't do that. He goes, it's my business. I can do anything I want. No, that's not really what I'm saying. I see, Uncle Bob, here's the problem. Uncle Bob, you're a big contractor. You have 10 projects going, and you needed bonds for those, and you told me to get them. So I had to use, watch this, I had to use your property as collateral for the other bonds. What does that really mean, guys? Collateral means it's, again, being put up that if he messes up, his building's going down. Is that right? That's a problem. And Uncle Bob, unfortunately, you don't have any structures that have free and clear collateral at this point. Uncle Bob is devastated. He absolutely wants to help Joe, but now he just can't do it. So he's got to go back and say, Joe, I'm so sorry. I wanted to do it, but I don't have any free and clear collateral. Joe is devastated. What is he going to do? I mean, he's got the job in the bag. He just needs the bond. So he thinks about it. He goes back. Oh, he says, City of St. Petersburg. No, this is like really, really cool city. You know what I got to thinking about? Because, you know, I want this job, and I know you do too. But I started thinking, and here's what's really good. Do you, the City of St. Petersburg, need a way to monitor whether I'm on task with the $5 million project? Is that right? Because you have to report to the council people and the mayor and all that stuff. Tell you what we ought to do. Just for you, we have to take the $5 million project, divide it into $1 million increments, and then you'll know when I'm done with that part, you can pay me for that, and I'll use the money, and then I'll use the money, and then Isn't that a great idea? The City of St. Petersburg said, I don't care how we write it up, I want the job done. No problem. So now Joe goes over to ABC Insurance Company and says, look, ABC Insurance Company, the job is now divided into $5 million, so therefore I'm going to take this and build the building. Isn't that great? And the ABC Insurance Company said, all right, here's the deal, Joe. We like you, we think you have the talent, we think you can get it done. However, Joe, we want joint control over the money. Let me tell you what I just said, Joe. Joe, I, the insurance company, want to make sure that you're using the money for this job and you're not using it for another job or running off to the Bahamas with it. So we want you to go back to the City of St. Petersburg and tell them that you're opening up a bank account with your name on it, Joe, and our name on it too. Because we, the insurance company, will take joint control. That means, Joe, that if you want any money out of that bank account, we have to sign off on it. Now, we're not going to nickel and dime you, don't worry. But if you say you want $30,000 for payroll, piece of cake, there's $30,000. You come 3 days later and say, I need $30,000 for payroll, we're going to say, nice try, Joel. I don't think so. So we're gonna monitor the money. You wanna do it? You got the bond. What's Joe gonna say? Okay, we'll do it. All right, guys, what do I care about? In this particular case, there are several questions coming from what you just heard on your state exam. Let's start with the first one. The first one's gonna actually say, who are the parties to the bond? A will say the principal, the obligee, the surety. The next one will say the next one will say the principal, the obligee, the indemnitor. Next one will say the principal, the indemnitor, the surety. Next one will say the indemnitor, the obligee, the surety. Who are the parties to the bond? Are means always, guys. Who are always a party to the bond? And your answer is indemnitor is not always a party to the bond. It's a once in a while it could be party to the bond. So your answer is principal, obligee, surety. However, the next question is going to say who may be a party to the bond. May means once in a while. Your answer is indemnitor. However, if you are lucky, one of those would have been yours. If you're unlucky, listen to this one. The city of St. Petersburg wants to have Joe build a building for him. Requires him to get a bond from the ABC Insurance Company. Who are the parties to the bond? A will say principal, obligee, surety. Next one will say obligee, principal, surety. Next one will say surety, principal, obligee. Next one will say surety, obligee, principal. I'd like to do the story again. Story said, City of St. Petersburg wants to have Joe build a building for him. Requires him to get a bond from the ABC Insurance Company. Who are the parties to the bond? What's the only thing different in that entire thing? Every answer is the same, isn't it? Except for what? The order in which they're in. At no time will your state exam ever tell you you have to pick the order in which the players were listed in the story. That's the only way they know if you knew who was truly the principal or the obligee or the surety. Listen to the story one more time. The city of St. Petersburg wants to have Joe build a building for him. Requires him to get a bond from the ABC Insurance Company. Who are the parties to the bond?
OPS.
Guys, in this particular case, the city of St. Petersburg was first, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Joe was second, and ABC Insurance Company was third. Your answer is B. Any questions? No questions? You guys are loving me at this late hour, aren't you? You really are, I can see it in your faces. All right, as we look at this, what I need to do is to now show you all the things that we just talked about while we're going through it, and talk about some more along the way. So let's get started by going down. Here's your three parties to the bond: the surety, the principal, the obligee. But don't forget we had the fourth party to the bond. That's where you saw that. In addition to all of that, then we went down to the bonding process. Yes, I know we said that if you want a bond, the surety wants to check you out before they give you a bond. Your state exam question is almost exactly like this. It says, if the surety wants to, I'm sorry, hold on, what does it say? It says, if the surety wants to satisfy itself before issuing a bond, what do they want to know? And obviously, guys, there are three things they want to know. Please notice in parentheses, I said not collateral. Collateral is a part of capital. It's not a separate standalone item of itself. So they want to know character, capital, and capability. That's what they want to know. Then you're going down to something called underwriting tools. Anytime we talk about underwriting tools, please notice down there, if you will, there's that joint control we talked about. Under joint control, we already said, it's kind of like just having the surety and the principal sign off on disbursements. That's what it is. Don't worry about collateral, not concerned about it. I just put it in there by definition. I'll help you out, and you can see it says attorney in fact. Guys, attorney in fact is really the insurance agent. I always use the word power of attorney because that's what your contract says when you work with a bonding company. Your textbook got creative and called it attorney in fact. Power of attorney, attorney in fact, they're the same thing for your testing pleasure. Don't worry about it. Now, as you look at each of these categories, what else you care about is there are classifications or categories of bonds. You can see there's contract bonds, there's fiduciary court bonds, there's license bonds, and even when we get to the bottom, you'll also see there's a miscellaneous section. Are all of these the bonds that are out there? No. Matter of fact, this is a small representation of the different guarantees that are out there today. But these are the only ones that are in circulation for your prayer session on the state exam. As I look at contract bonds, I want you to know I'm always going to refer to them pretty much as construction, but it's not limited to the construction industry. If I'm looking at any of these bonds, you can see right down here, the first bond is called a bid bond. What is a bid bond, guys? A bid bond basically says that if Joe's gonna go out and give a quote on a job, the obligee wanna make sure, number one, that Joe, if elected to be the person to get the job, first and foremost, they wanna know that Joe is gonna enter into the contract. Reason this is a problem is because a lot of contractors started playing games. And what happened is they would lowball the bid, get the bid, start the job, and in the middle of the job, they'd go back to the obligee and say, oh, you know what? See, when I quoted on the job, I quoted on what I thought the job was, but then under my desk, I saw this extra page that could see the staple. You know, when you sent it to me, the staple wasn't good, and it fell off under the desk, and now I gotta have another 2 million on top of the 5 million that I told you I need because I don't have the ability to do it. The city said, we're over the games, we're not gonna play a game anymore. So if you tell me that you're gonna do it for 5 million and I give you that job, and you come back and say you want 7, you better be careful, because let me tell you what I just said. Your bond is gonna guarantee that if in fact you don't do the job for the amount quoted, then we're gonna go hire somebody else and your bond's gonna pay the spread of difference between the amount you quoted and that of the next accepted. By the way, it doesn't have to be the next lowest, no, it's whoever we want. So Joe, you opt for a 5 million, and I know that I have another $6 million bid, but we really don't like that company very well, so the answer is no to that. There is another 7, but we really like the one who put the $8 million bid in a lot better from a workmanship, so we're gonna choose the $8 million company. So Joe, let me tell you what I just said. You either do the job for 5 million, lose 2, or you don't do the job and you lose 3 million because we're hunting you down for the difference. So whatever you wanna do, which one would you like, Joe? You lose 2, you lose 3 million, those are your options. Well, bids, contractors are not trying to play games anymore because they understand what they just guaranteed. But in addition to that, the insurance company's on the hook too. Because if the insurance company gives that guarantee, they're telling the city of St. Petersburg if they want any other bonds, i.e. the city wants any other bonds to be issued, that ABC insurance company better have already checked that contract out well enough so that they know up front they'll give them the other bonds. For your testing pleasure, they'll come back and say all of the following are features of a bid bond accepted. And that's how they'll do that. There is another one out there where it does say that Joe put in a bid for 5 million and now is not able to do the job for that. And the question was to know, how does the bid bond respond? A says it's not going to apply at all. B says it's only going to pay up to the amount Joe bid. Next one's going to say it's going to pay the difference between Joe's bid and the next bid accepted. And the next one says they only have to pay up to the next lowest bid after Joe's. Pays the difference. There's nothing about lowest in there. Just pay the difference. Now Joe's ready and is starting the job, and Joe's company will be required to furnish him a performance bond. Performance bond basically says that Joe, when you start doing the job, we want you to not only do the job, but complete the contract for and according to specifications that we've agreed to. At this point, guys and gals, if he doesn't, his bond's gonna respond. There's another bond called payment bond out there, and the titles are pretty much telling you what we're doing. Hey Joe, hang around, get all your bills paid off, because we, the city, don't want a lien on our building after we've already paid you. Get everything done, so pay all your payroll, pay your supply houses, don't be getting someone to put a lien on our structure. Another one, Joe, is a maintenance bond. Joe, we want you, after the job is completed, hang around it for a couple of years, because it's going to take us a while to get in and see that everything is built correctly out of this particular category. So therefore, hang around and take care of any defective work or materials. All 4 of those bonds are important, but supply bond is a little different. Supply bond is now Joe going out to all the building supply places and saying, look, I've got a $5 million project I gotta do, and what I need to do is buy all the materials and supplies. So, building supply house, make sure you sharpen your pencil, and make sure you give me the best deal up front, cause it's out for bid for competitive nature right now. So he hands all the list of supplies to Home Depot and Lowe's and Scotty's and other building places. And you know Home Depot's gonna come back cheaper, you just know what's gonna happen. So now, Joe knows this is a 3-year project. Joe also knows that he's got to deliver according to his specifications. So he wants Home Depot, he said, all right, Home Depot, here's the deal. I'll buy every single one of these from you, however, don't be coming a year and a half into the project going, oh, we don't work with that manufacturer anymore, so we can't get you those items. Don't be telling me you can't do that. You, Home Depot, need to give me, Joe, a bond called a supply bond, guaranteeing that not only you'll deliver the supplies, but you'll deliver them for the price we agreed. Don't tell me your prices are going up in 3 years. Let everybody else's price go up, but not mine. You better do it the way we need to do it. So what supply bond says, it's guaranteed deliver the goods for the amount agreed upon. That's what that's doing. Now, before I go down to the last one down there, let's talk about a couple of state exam questions. Your first state exam question says, the state of Florida has ordered some desks and chairs, and they want to make sure they're delivered for the amount that they agreed. Now, they're going to say for the amount in the contract. A will say what kind of bond. A will say a bid bond, B will say a performance bond, C will say a payment bond, and D will say a supply bond. Supply bond is your answer because it's delivery of goods. Anytime it's delivery of goods. Bid is a act of service, where supply is deliver of goods. That's the difference between the two. Now there's another state exam question out there, just a little tricky again. It says, if you're having a building built on your behalf, and you do not want to have to worry about a chance of default, what kind of bonds would you require? A will say the bid bond, the performance bond, the maintenance bond. The next one will say the bid bond, the performance bond, the payment bond, and the supply bond. Next one will say the bid bond, the performance bond, the supply bond, the maintenance bond. And the next one will say the bid bond, the supply bond, the payment bond, and the maintenance bond. I'll do that again. If you're having a building built on your behalf, what bonds would you request? Guys, the bond you don't care about, if it's your building, you don't care whether Joe got a supply bond from anybody. That's a Joe problem. He's the contractor, it's his problem. You only care about a bid bond that, number one, he's gonna enter the contract. Number two, he's gonna perform. Number three, he's gonna pay his bills. And number four, he's gonna hang around. Those are the bonds you care about. Moving down, find something called fiduciary court bonds, and that is exactly what they are, guys, court bonds. When you ever look at the word fiduciary, please look down there and you will see what it's talking about. These are people appointed by the court to handle the financial affairs of others. Sometimes they're CPAs, sometimes they're attorneys, sometimes, guys and gals, it's individuals appointed by the court. The normal time that many of this happens is, of course, if there's a messy divorce and there's one dominant personality over the other. Sometimes the court has to look out for the one who doesn't have the dominant personality. So they'll tell some third party to collect all the assets, pay the debt, sell property, and then separate out the assets between the two players. That's easy, but I want you to put a lot of stars by probate, because that's the most popular out of that entire category right there. And if I say probate, many of you guys are probably understanding that probate means someone has passed, and because they are now deceased, their estate has to be liquidated. If that's the case, and they don't have anybody to liquidate that estate, the court will appoint again another person. The whole concern of the court is that they don't want that person appointed by the court to sell off the assets at less than market value. So if they have a car and they come to you, whoever is the person appointed, and they come to you and go, hey, I got this car over here, and I'll tell you what, I'll give you a good deal on the car if you give me a kickback. Nah, that's not permitted, and that's why they say, if we find out you sell it under market value, or we see that you truly have a situation where this is gonna be the case, then you can see here, guys and gals, that a probate bond is what would be required for them to prove to the court and the probate bond will pay the court that differential, and the bond will hunt the person who's been appointed by the court down to get back the money that they undersold the property for them. Did that make sense? All right. But right below that, you'll also see something called conservation bond. Conservation bond means that there are people out there who are not considered eligible to make decisions, and one is minors and one is incompetent. If a minor has some type of assets, someone has to look out for them. So if I have a minor, both parents die in an accident, someone has to look out for the assets of the minor. That is conservation bond. Do not worry about insolvency. And oh, by the way, let's stop here, give you a state exam question. State exam question said we have a person appointed by the court to handle the financial affairs of a deceased minor. What kind of bond is required?
Probate bond.
Probate, because the key word was deceased, right? That's what the key word was. Look down under court bonds, guys. I'm not really worried about court bonds so much, although plaintiff and defendant pool, your major concern is you're gonna get a question about an appeal bond. What is an appeal bond? Well, guys, as you can imagine, appeal means you're gonna go to court to try to overturn a verdict. In this case, appeal bond means it's a court bond, and that's all you're looking for. Bail bonds, don't worry about it. You do not have the authority by this license to sell bail bonds with this license. However, if you do want to do that, come back to my 84-hour class for bail bonds, and what's his name will teach you how to shoot a gun. It's a family affair. All right, we'll move on down and find something called license and permit bond. If I'm looking at license and permit bond, this is a racket. Racket, 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 racket. It's a racket. Not that I'm opinionated, it's a racket. Oh, what? All right, well, there are business types out there, but they are required to have something called an occupational license. If they're required to have an occupational license, you and I both know that what that means to you is now they have to prove, in some cases, that they're gonna uphold all the regulations set forth by the governing body of that town or county. Sometimes contractors, a lot of times, will not only have to be licensed, they'll also have to be bonded. Well, let me tell you why this is so crazy. Because if in fact you remember there are three parties to a bond, is that right? Obviously, the principal would be the contractor in that scenario. I know the insurance company would be the surety, but who would be the obligee? Obligee is the one who is requesting the bond. Who requests the bond from the contractor? The city or the county. Why do I care? How many of y'all seen those little trucks that says licensed and bonded? Aren't they cool? Don't you feel warm and fuzzy? Not after this class. Let me tell you why. Because if it says licensed and bonded, if they ever mess up, your city gets the money they messed up for. Isn't that a hoot? Because it goes to the obligee, the one requesting the bond. Well, their city says, we'll forward the money to whom is entitled to the money, and I'm sure they will. But the only question I have in my mind right now is, will it be in my lifetime? All right, looking on further, guys, what I want you to do is put some stars though by permit bond, because this is the one that stands out so frequently in this category. When I look at permit bond, what I want you to see is like a license bond, but it's for one specific function. So if they say to you, I'm gonna get a permit bond, that means they went out and got a permit to take your tree down or put a fence up or to do something. If they do get a permit bond, that bond is finished and over when the project is done. Every other bond is continuous as long as you keep paying the premium for it. The reason this is important for you is because when I look at it, the question will come exactly like this. It will say, what's like a license bond, but it's for one specific function? Your answer is gonna be permit, good. And your other question is gonna come in, it's gonna say, what is considered to be a non-continuous bond? Guys, in this case, this is the only one that's considered non-continuous is the permit bond. Do not worry about indemnity. I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about franchise. Go down to miscellaneous. And ladies and gentlemen, oh, don't look. How many of you guys remember I told you I administered the state exam? Do y'all remember that? Yes, did I mention it was essay? Yes, guys, I gotta love it. How many of y'all remember I told you that when people would come, I would say, if you don't know what the answer is, don't leave it blank, just guess. Y'all remember that? Okay, don't look. One of the questions back then, and still today on your state exam, ask, what's a blue sky bond? Can you imagine the answers? Yes. One person wrote down it's guaranteeing good weather. No. That's nothing to do with that. But guys, what is this? Please highlight the word misrepresentation of security dealers. That's what it is. There is a federal law and state law out there that says if you sell securities and you're a securities dealer and you misrepresent, they want a bond to pay back those individuals that you obviously caused harm to. That bond is the blue sky bond, misrepresentation of security dealers. Your state exam question will say, which of the following best describes a blue sky bond? And A says bad investments by security dealers. B says misrepresentation by security dealers. C says theft of investing funds by security dealers. And D is something really, really stupid, but it was not right. So if you see the word misrepresentation, that's, oh, don't look at the next one, don't look at the next one, don't look. Okay, you ready? We always ask, what is a loss instrument bond? No lie. A woman wrote down, it's like my son losing his tuba. I failed her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If you can lose a tuba, you are too stupid to be an insurance. I'm sorry. If you lose a flute, we'll talk, but don't tell him you're losing a tuba. That's the dumbest thing ever. Okay, she deserved to be spoiled. However, I failed her. That's like wrong. It has nothing to do with musical instruments, guys and gals. It has to do with money documents. That's what he's talking about. Instruments are money documents. So when they ask you that if in fact you lost a cashier check and you want to get reimbursed for it, what will they require you to do? Require you to get a loss instrument bond. Why? Because they don't want to have to worry about you cashing the first one and the replacement one after they replace it. So if you do give them a loss instrument bond, they'll hunt you down and both cash them. That's what's going to happen. Internal revenue, somehow that's always tied to taxes, but I wouldn't worry about that. And I won't worry about customs. My favorite, and the one on your state exam is the public official bond. It is so funny. Yes, because it guarantees that the elected official will hold the oath of office and perform the duties and turn the records over when they leave. Isn't that funny? Come on, that's yours right there. All right, we don't sell too many of those. Point that out. All right, guys, how many bond questions? That would be 3 out of that particular page. That's what you're going to see. So excited to tell you we have made it to page 48, which means we only have 4 more pages left. Isn't